Michael Jackson on stage, a rom-com obsessed with the 100% virgin bride, a street play that questions its own morality, and a family deciding whether to pull the plug on its matriarch. This week's picks aren't easing you in. From Michael to Ginny Wed Sunny 2, from Nukkad Natak to Mercy. The films on the table today swing between spectacle and stillness, satire and sincerity. And to be honest, not all of them land where they aim. I'm Varun Kaushik, bringing you yet another edition of The Screen Verdict, the show where films don't just get picked, they get picked apart. Let's dive right in. Ginny Wed Sunny 2 is a rom-com obsessed with honesty, but it can't be quite honest with itself. It starts with a deliciously awkward mismatch. Medha Shankar's Ginny is educated, urban, and nursing a heartbreak. Avinash Tiwari's Sunny is a small-town ex-wrestler trying to evade a viral embarrassment. They meet in the godforsaken arranged marriage market, where lying is practically etiquette, and being 100% virgin still earns you brownie points. And for a while, the film actually leans into this absurdity. There's satire here, it's pointed and it's specific, it's uncomfortably real. The kind that makes you smirk and then shift in your seat. But then, director Prashant Jha loses his grip. The conflict between the lovers feels half-baked and forced. And worse, the resolution feels like it just happened. This doesn't feel like love unfolding. It feels like writing about adjusting, co-authored by Mohalla aunties across the country. The actors though try to rescue it. Avinash Tiwari, still carrying echoes of his Laila Majnu brilliance, finds brief sincerity in the silences, less so in the comedy. Medha Shankar is earnest and grounded, and frankly, she feels stranded in a film that doesn't really meet her halfway even. Around them, veterans Leela Dubey and Sudhir Pandey lend warmth, even as their arcs feel over-familiar. A few lines land, a few moments click, but nothing really holds. This one doesn't crash. It just quietly slips away. It's immemorable. And that's 2 stars you feel more than you remember. On to our next review. Imagine this, you get in trouble for theft, not like the grand larceny kind, just petty college theft anchored by a sense of righteousness. And your surprisingly benevolent institute director decides to offer you a way out of the rustication. Get 5 slum kids into school. Sounds like something straight out of a class 6 moral science book, doesn't it? This is the premise of Nukkad Natak, a new indie released on Netflix, which is entirely crowdfunded and marketed with, believe it or not, a painted van that they ran across the country. Now, the premise might seem pedestrian, but on screen it really breathes. There's something very disarming about Nukkad Nataks, right? The flowy red dupattas over the black kurtas. You instinctively know that it shelters a righteousness that is at best provisional. It is this precisely self-aware, almost winking moral universe that shapes this film. It's so conscious of its own scaffolding that it begins to dismantle your criticism, even as you assemble it. I mean, how do you critique a piece of art that insists on learning alongside you, not at you? Set in the coal-smudged arteries of Dhanbad, the narrative trails Shivang, played by Shivang Rajpal, who's a closeted gay man negotiating both himself and a catalogue of smaller and louder anxieties. Now he finds respite in this girl called Molshri, the conscience of the nation type, by instinct and by self-appointment. She presides over the college's Nukkad Natak collective, which Shivang also finds respite in. Spotting a canteen owner exploiting his worker, Molshri sets out to carry out a petty heist, stealing tuck from the canteen and giving it in the classic Robin Hood-esque way to the exploited worker. Shivang tags along hesitantly. Molshri assures him that they won't land in trouble. Surprise, surprise, they do. Now, this honesty to the guileless naivety that clings to every breath of this play on worlds. See what I did there? Shivang catastrophizes with the diligence of someone who trusts his fears more than his facts. Molshri, aflame with purpose, crowns herself the solitary custodian of right and wrong, by hook, by crook, or by an impromptu monologue that insists on both. What emerges is not sermon, but a series of small, abrasive awakenings. The film stumbles certainly, but it stumbles forward. It over-explains, its grasp on realism loosens at points. I mean, the script could be a lot tighter. And yet, it refuses to be polished into passivity. It is restless, searching, and a little untidy and jagged, just like the Youth It Chronicles. A scrappy, stubborn little poem of a film that believes, against better evidence, that change might still rhyme. And somewhere in that trembling sincerity, it earns 4 stars. On to our next review. Michael, the film gives you Michael Jackson, the legend, and carefully sidesteps the man. The film traces Michael's journey from Gary, Indiana, under the watchful and fiercely controlling eye of his father, played by Corman Domingo, through the rise of the Jackson 5, all the way to solo superstardom and Thriller, of course. It's iconic. You get the milestones, the rehearsals, the performances, the first solo hit, and the bad tour, who could forget that, right? The moonwalk that didn't just cross stages, it crossed races, geographies, and generations. And to its credit, the film captures the scale effortlessly. But behind that, the film hesitates, because while it shows flashes, the loneliness at the top, the absence of real friendships, and the strange comfort of exotic pets, it never quite becomes a character study. It doesn't dig deep enough to move beyond the surface level spectacle. More than 2 decades of a complicated life compressed into just over 2 hours of music and family tension. And the difficult parts, they barely register. His obsession with fairness and fair skin, his closeness with children, the allegations that defined a larger part of his later life, all gets at best a cursory glance or is avoided altogether. What you're left with is a version of Michael that feels curated, for the lack of a better term. A formulaic, mild, almost sterilized portrait of a musical genius. One that seems determined to stay on the right side of his estate, his family, and history itself. That said, the film knows its strengths. Jafar Jackson as his uncle Michael is uncanny in voice, in movement, and in presence. He doesn't just imitate, he channels Michael. Now technically it's slick. The editing flows, the camera gives you the rush of a live performance, and the costumes, unmistakably iconic. And the soundtrack, of course it works. It has to. I mean, it's a movie about Michael Jackson. But the film ultimately plays like a showreel. Concert snippets, music video recreations, greatest hits stitched together without fully confronting the contradictions of a man at the center. It captures the moments that made history, just not always the truths behind them. A spectacle that dazzles but rarely disturbs. 3 stars, and very much Michael as he was. For the most part, that is. On to our next review. Mercy asks a question that most films avoid, then refuses to answer it easily. What do you do when a loved one is slipping away and you have the power to decide when it ends, to pull the plug? Writer-director Mithul Patel takes that question and euthanasia and peels it almost gently, cautiously, to tell a story that's less about conclusions and more about the discomfort. Set on Christmas Eve, the film wraps itself in a deceptive calm. It's festive, it's quiet, it's almost still. Even as the family stands on the brink of losing the matriarch to a coma. A very similar premise to that of Goodbye June by Kate Winslet, which is a must-watch too, by the way. At the center is Shekhar, played by Raj Vasudeva, the elder son holding everything together, including a younger brother who refuses to be held together. Kunal Bhan plays the younger Vihan with just enough recklessness to make the tension feel lived in. And then there's Jia, Niharika Raizada, who's pregnant, watchful, and carrying her own quiet storm. The early stretches work. A dinner table unravels years of buried resentment. Relationships feel textured, recognizable, and the drama doesn't shout, it simmers quietly. But once the central crisis fully sets in, something shifts. The writing begins to flatten. Not because the emotions aren't there, they're there always, trust me, but because the characters don't always seem to be equipped to carry them forward. The film gives them space to speak, but not always the clarity to arrive anywhere. And yet, there's honesty in that hesitation. I mean, there's gall and gumption even. Because decisions like these aren't cinematic. They don't build to crescendos, they linger unresolved. Mercy understands that for the most part. It avoids melodrama, thankfully, keeps its runtime tight. Also thankfully, this isn't a film chasing thunder. It's quieter, it's more tentative, and sometimes even frustratingly so. But in choosing restraint over spectacle and discomfort over easy answers, it earns its place. Not quite soaring, but holding steady at about 3 stars with just enough grace to make you sit with what leaves unsaid. That's this week's Screen Verdict, hits, misses, and everything in between. Don't forget to hit the like button, drop your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to follow the Tribune across socials so you don't miss the next one. For the full reviews, head to the movie review section on tribuneindia.com. Until next week then, binge responsibly.